So, Elliot Noss, who the heck are you anyway?
Well, I'm the CEO of Tucows, which runs Ting, and I've been doing the same thing now for nearly 20 years and never had the same day twice. So that would be the high level.
Okay, I should probably mention that I do some work for Ting. So, how's it going, boss?
Work or Ting?
Well, let's Ting, and then we're going to talk about congestion, mobile congestion, because Ting is a mobile provider.
Yes, Ting is going. TMobile is going really, really well. Continues to grow aggressively. You know, our biggest challenge with TMobile is awareness. People who know about it and use it love it, and people who even people who the model doesn't fit for, in other words, people who use a lot of data, still always say things like, you know, your guys' model just doesn't fit for me, but boy, do I wish we could still use you.
Because the model is a totally pay for what you use model. Right?
Yeah, pay in buckets. You know, sometimes people will chastise us.
You don't have to bring buckets of money, that's not the point. It's a really bad way of putting it, I gotta say. It's gonna cost you buckets.
Yes.
So you obviously are, the state of mobile congestion is of direct interest to you.
Well, it's important to us because, you know, the people who Ting doesn't work for tend to be people who use lots of data, and you know, that's had us interested in people managing their own data and trying to control their data usage. You know, we think we've found that that a significant portion of mobile data, maybe 30 or 40% of all the data consumed on mobile networks, is completely wasted. So I'll open with that provocative statement.
What does wasted mean in this context? So, you mean people talking about trivialities and Justin Bieber photos? I think that's what you mean. You're so judgmental.
You know, Beeb is a good Canadian like me. People who consume a lot of data, and really for me that means anybody who's using more than 2 or 3 or maybe 4 gigs of data a month is probably doing one of three things. One, they're streaming a lot of music. So the way to get around that is to cache music if you want to, but you want to stream music and therefore need an unlimited or high data plan, you know, God be with you. People who are watching a lot of video on the mobile device over the mobile network, those people tend to be very narrow niche. You know, you're commuting, you're on a train for 40 or 50 minutes a day, and you're watching, you know, YouTube or Hulu while you're on the train. Again, valid use case. The third are people who are using a phone in a pretty conventional way, but tend to be active users of 3 services: Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram. And they also tend to allow those 3 services to update over the mobile network. And I'll explain a little bit about what that means. Should I just continue ranting, or would you like to provoke me with another question?
Well, so what's another question? No, keep going.
So what happens is those 3 services in particular, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, are very picture and video heavy, obviously. And they're also configured out of the box to aggressively pre-cache pictures and videos. So, you know, it's a well-intended design by the programmers who are, typically very young and used to living in a world of unlimited data or giant data buckets.
So pre-caching means that when you're on a page, it looks ahead to what might be on the next page you're going to click on and downloads it even if you end up not going there.
That's right.
Is that approximately right?
That's okay. Approximately right. So, I mean, you went to the important second point there. You know, pre-caching means that it's preloading every picture picture and video in your feed across those three services, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Now, those feeds tend to be very picture and video, especially video. Video is a huge consumer of data. Most people actually only ever see some small percentage of their feed. People might see 6, 8, 10, 12% of their feed, but all of that feed is being cached on the mobile network. So if you're walking around on the mobile network, there are pictures and videos just being downloaded constantly to your device, cached, and then that cache is being flushed that you're never ever seeing, and which leads, of course, to the deep philosophical question: if a video is downloaded to a device and nobody sees it, did it make a sound?
But you still paid for it.
That's you certainly still paid for it. So we're actually going to engage in a little bit of research. Some very.
I'm sorry. Can the user choose to turn off pre-caching?
Well, so we have a yes, no, maybe with Facebook. You can turn it off. So what you're turning off is updating over the mobile network, and it's a setting, and we can show you how to do that. But the problem is the Facebook mobile app updates regularly. So anytime you update that Facebook mobile app, it reverts back to pre-caching. So unless you're very actively managing that, you're often going to be out of step. With Instagram, we're not sure, and with Snapchat, there is no way to stop it.
Okay.
So, we think that's a huge amount of bandwidth consumption, and if you're with us, you're paying at the margin $15 a gigabyte. With even the very cheapest high volume big incumbent bucket. And those buckets tend to be, you have to buy them in big swaths and you're always overusing. You're still paying $8 or $10 a gigabyte there. If you're consuming an extra 3, 4, 5 gigs a month that you're never seeing, you're talking about real money, $25, $30 a month, $300, $400 a year in, simply wasted video, simply wasted mobile data.
Although,
yes,
I am not saying it's worth it, but the benefit that you get from pre-caching everything is that the pages you go to load instantly.
Absolutely. So remember that most of the time that people are consuming things like Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat is they tend to be when they're on Wi-Fi, when they're actually consuming it. So when are you doing that? You're doing that when you're sitting somewhere. You're at home, you're at work, you're at school, all places where you're in a coffee shop where there's Wi-Fi. There's a very narrow use case for when you're actually sort of walking around, really in a true mobile setting, consuming your feed. And I'm not saying it's never, but I think if people really understood better, first of all, how rarely they're actually consuming their social media feeds while truly mobile, one, and two, what that was really costing them. I think the trade-off would be very different. If it turns out that you're paying $25, $30, maybe even $40 or $50 a month for the benefit of checking your social media feed while you're standing in line at a hot dog stand, which doesn't have Wi-Fi, it might be a very different set of trade-offs for people.
And if it were obvious to the user in a single click to turn it on and off, so that you're walking around and you're thinking, wow, my reception is terrible, Facebook's so slow, I can't stand it. And of course you're wrong, it's not your reception, it's that you got trained into expecting instantaneous page flips.
Yeah.
You'd be able to turn it on and know that you're paying whatever you're paying.
That's right, but you wouldn't. You still could consume your feeds. You just wouldn't be pre-caching in the same way.
Yeah.
And so, mobile networks are getting faster and faster, where that's not that much of a difference. I think it's all about understanding the trade-offs. We believe it's the case that if if everyone understood with perfect clarity, what their trade-offs were, then a significant number of those people would choose to make different decisions, and that would, happily from our perspective, make the Ting value proposition that much more attractive.
There's a sense in which these apps are subsidizing the mobile providers, the network providers. Right?
Inadvertently. And I think that I would never suggest that there was an intention on the part of a Snapchat developer to, evilly feed the incumbent telcos. It's very narrowly focused on the performance of their app, and you get a bit of an arms race, right? Where if one app is doing it and another app isn't, well, you're going to suffer in comparison, and nobody wants that.
But it does relieve the network providers, take some of the pressure off of them to upgrade their network so that we get actual dynamic, non-cached performance that's satisfactory.
Well,
plus it obviously, as you're saying, it's increasing if you're paying by the bit, then it's putting money in their pockets.
And I'll go, further. I mean, we hear all the time, and there's 2 points I'll make here. We hear all the time about spectrum shortage. Well, if magically we could wave a wand and it turns out some significant portion, 30, 40, 50% of mobile data was completely wasted, and I note, by the way, we haven't even talked about video ads that are being surreptitiously downloaded behind the web pages you're loading mobily. So there's another big chunk of waste. If 30, 40, 50% of mobile data was being wasted, well, all of a sudden we don't have a spectrum shortage. And the other very interesting implication is it would certainly, if this turns out to be true, and again, we're gonna do some really hard, high-level research on this. If it turns out to be true, then the prices paid at the most recent spectrum auction will be greatly overstated.